A billionaire CEO is found dead inside his locked penthouse. 3 suspects, each with motive, each pointing fingers at the other. But Detective Ethan Cross knows one thing: killers always leave signatures. And this signature whispers of someone far deadlier than greed. Ethan Cross stepped into the room with the calm weight of a man who had spent 2 decades staring into humanity's darkest corners. To others, this was chaos. To him, it was a mosaic. Every shard of detail was a clue, and every clue whispered. Adrian Vale, billionaire CEO of Vale Technologies, lay sprawled near his obsidian desk. His silver hair was immaculate, his suit uncreased, as though he had prepared for an evening gala, but the single, precise bullet hole in his chest rewrote the script. There was no weapon, no struggle, just silence, cold and absolute. Officer Allison Carter softly breaks the quiet and says, "Medical examiner puts time of death between 8 and 8:30. Barely an hour ago." Ethan didn't answer right away. His eyes moved, not searching but dissecting. He looked past the obvious, into the negative space of the room. What shouldn't be there, and what was missing where it should be. To others, details are clutter. To Ethan, they were whispers. And tonight, the room was whispering loudly. He circled the desk, his eyes catching on Vale's massive glowing monitor. Across its surface glared columns of numbers and encrypted codes. At the top, in bold letters, one chilling phrase: Project Epsilon. Allison's voice cut through his focus as she says, "The suspects are waiting downstairs in the study. Vale's brother, his CFO, and his head of security. It's a viper's nest, Ethan." The detective straightened slowly, his face shadowed by stormlight. A flicker of steel glinted in his eyes. Ethan gravely replied, "Good, let's go poke it." Inside the study, 3 lives intersected with Adrian's fortune, and perhaps his death. Each one had motive, each one had secrets, and now all 3 were cornered. Lydia Grant, the CFO, sat on a velvet sofa, posture rigid. Her hands knotted so tightly her knuckles bleached white. She looked like a porcelain doll ready to fracture under pressure. When Ethan Cross entered, her eyes darted toward him, wide, defensive, searching for salvation or escape. Lydia, with a trembling voice, says, "This is insane." Adrian was difficult, yes, but brilliant. Who would ever want to do this? Ethan stepped forward, his shadow stretching long across the rug, his calm presence drawing the oxygen from the room. Ethan said, "That's what we're here to uncover, Ms. Grant. But your name features prominently in the Epsilon ledger." For an instant, her mask slipped. Panic flickered raw across her face before indignation replaced it. Lydia snaps back and says, "Those were confidential internal audits. Adrian didn't trust anyone. Not even me. He kept records on everyone." Her hand shook as she pointed at the man looming by the window. Lydia accuses Marcus, saying, "If you want to know how someone got in here, ask him." Security was always compromised under Marcus's watch. Marcus Hale, head of security, turned slowly. Built like a fortress, a soldier carved from stone. But Ethan's eyes caught it immediately. Fresh scratches etched angrily down his left forearm. Marcus's gaze was glacial, unflinching. Marcus replied, "My security was flawless. The only weakness was Adrian's trust in leeches like her." He cut Lydia with a look of pure contempt. Marcus attacks by saying, "A rat fattened off Adrian's empire. She had the most to lose if that ledger ever went public." From the wingback chair came a scoff. Daniel Vale, Adrian's younger brother, lounged like royalty fallen on hard times. Daniel muckily says, "Careful, Marcus. Adrian's attack dog shouldn't bite the hand that feeds him. Unless, of course, someone else was feeding you more." Marcus's jaw clenched, fury simmering just beneath the surface. Marcus warns Daniel, saying, "Watch your mouth, Danny." Daniel, smirking, sipping slowly. "Or what? Lydia and Adrian fought over money constantly. And you? If he ever snapped your leash, no one would be shocked if you tore his throat out." Daniel softly says, "My brother was complicated, and complicated men make enemies." Ethan stood in silence, his gaze cutting from one suspect to the next. The panicked executive, the violent soldier, the greedy heir. They tore at each other with words, but to Ethan, it all felt too neat, too rehearsed. 3 suspects, 3 perfect motives. But for Detective Ethan Cross, perfection was the greatest lie of all. Ethan let the silence stretch, his gaze heavy, patient, suffocating. When he finally spoke, his voice was even deliberate. Ms. Grant, you've worked with Adrian for over a decade. He trusted you with the numbers, with his ledgers. And yet, he tapped his notebook with 2 fingers, a sharp punctuation. Your name sits inside Project Epsilon. Her throat bobbed. Panicking Lydia says, I don't know what you're implying. Adrian was paranoid. He logged everything. Every scent, every whisper, every suspicion. If anything, you should be asking Marcus about security. Ethan noted the deflection. Nervous. But nerves didn't equal guilt. Not in the way that mattered tonight. You've got scratches, Ethan said flatly, no inflection in his tone. Marcus glanced at the marks, then back up, jaw tightening. Training accident. Convenient. Ethan's stare didn't waver. You're loyal, Marcus. But loyalty bought is loyalty that can be sold. How much did Adrian's life cost? The soldier pushed off the wall, stepping forward just enough for the air to shift, and says, I didn't kill him. If I had. He flexed his hand, deliberate, almost threatening. You think I'd leave scratches? That single flash of logic, brutal, unpolished, told Ethan everything. Marcus was a hammer, not a scalpel. Adrian Vale had been executed with surgical precision. Marcus might kill, but not like this. You hated your brother? Ethan said, voice calm, direct. Daniel chuckled into his drink. Hate? No. Admired him. Envied him, maybe. Just wished he'd shared the empire. He lifted the glass like a toast. Can you blame me? Ethan leaned closer, his shadow falling across Daniel's face. Admiration doesn't send you rushing to the bar at exactly 7:30, making sure you're seen. That's not grief. That's alibi building. For the first time, Daniel's smirk faltered. His glass stilled, the amber liquid trembling with the tremor in his grip. You don't know me, Detective. Detective Allison approached Ethan, a tablet in her hands, blue light glowing against her face. Lydia's alibi's ironclad, she said, handing it over. A live-streamed quarterly earnings call filled the screen. The timestamp, 7:45 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. Thousands of shareholders watching her present in real time, her voice echoing across a digital stage. Ethan glanced at the time of death. 8:15 p.m. The math was merciless. Ethan skimmed a lab report on the screen in their temporary command post, the lobby still buzzing with uniforms and quiet urgency. Those abrasions on Marcus's arm, he muttered. Not from a fight. Rope burns. Training accident. And as for Daniel, the CCTV footage was crystal clear. Daniel entering a whiskey bar at 7:30 sharp, loud enough that 3 bartenders and half a dozen patrons remembered his bitter tirade against Adrian. He didn't leave until 9 p.m., when the police dragged him into the storm. If he didn't do it, then he must have rigged the evidence. Lydia shrieked, finger stabbing the air at Marcus. I was cleared, Marcus growled, stepping forward. He attacks back and says, maybe you doctored that video call. You're good with machines. Daniel barked out a bitter laugh and says, please, both of you circled Adrian like vultures. Don't look at me like I'm the only one hungry enough to strike. Ethan let them burn, let the tension reach the edge of chaos. Then his phone buzzed. The vibration cut through the room like a blade. He glanced down. A new message. Ballistics. He read, and the world narrowed into focus. The bullet? Ethan said, voice low but carrying, cutting through the shouting like glass. The others froze. A custom 9mm hollow point. Copper jacket. Polymer core. Maximum velocity. Minimal fragmentation. The exact same rounds have turned up in contract killings across Eastern Europe for 5 years. A raven, wings outstretched, frozen mid-flight. Elegant. Stylized. Deadly. Ethan said, you were so busy pointing fingers, voice dropping into a grim whisper, that you missed the truth staring back at you. He looked at the 3 of them, eyes cold, unyielding. He looked at the 3 of them, eyes cold, unyielding, and says, this wasn't murder by family, rival, or employee. It was an execution. Ethan sits alone at Adrian Vale's sleek glass desk, the glow of the computer screen. Encrypted code scrolling endlessly until one folder catches his eye. Epsilon Ledger. The window wasn't an escape route. It was a message. Vale hadn't turned off his cameras by mistake. He knew someone was coming. But what was he protecting? Ethan clicks deeper. The password prompt appears, simple yet chilling. The hint reads, Clara. His jaw tightens. The name drags him back to a case file burned into his memory. Clara images flash across Ethan's mind. Clara's lifeless body, the unanswered questions, the case closed too quickly. Adrian Vale hadn't been preparing to frame his brother. He wasn't hunting traitors in his circle. He was going to finish Clara's story and leak it. But before he could, someone silenced him permanently. Not with rage, not with jealousy, with precision. Ethan closes the laptop, his reflection staring back at him in the black screen. The raven symbol still burns in his mind, the signature of a ghostly assassin. Ethan's face hardens. Lightning flickers faintly, reflecting in his eyes as he says, "Tonight, the suspects were innocent. But the real killer walks free, a phantom called the Raven. And whoever called him holds the key to Clara's death." Detective Ethan Cross had found the pattern. A ghost in the storm. But the one who summoned the Raven? That was the shadow he would chase.